As Delius, Mozarco, and the elder approached the village center, faces began to alight at the sight of a very new visitor, unlike any they had seen before. Mozarco was drawing a great deal of attention as people began to approach, gathering to both welcome Delius and get a look at his new guest. Hello everyone, Delia said, as the people, and most attentively the children, began to gather around them. It's nice to see all of you again, Delia said happily. This is a guest. Her name is Mozaruko. Apparently, she comes from a world much like our own, a living world like Hagara. As I am to understand it, originally we all come from the same place, and were once known to live alongside each other on the same world. But there was some sort of catastrophe, and we all got separated. But, as fate would have it, destiny has brought Mozaroko to us, a guest of a different world, much like our own. I would like you to treat her with respect and consider her an ambassador from another village, Delia said, as most of the adults nodded, understanding his intent, even if the idea itself seemed unfathomable to them. The children, however, cared not for the details, staring in amazement at this glowing woman. Wow! Where did you come from, lady? One of the children announced, as Mozaroko looked down to them, suddenly giving a warm smile. Well, I come from a world like yours, like your champion Delius suggested. But my world is known as Valamas. Whoa, the little boy said in astonishment. So, are all the people where you come from glowy and stuff? The boy asked, still feeling curious. Mozaroko laughed gently. Why, yes, all of the people where I come from are quite glowy, Mozaroko said, as she knelt down to speak with the child closer to his own eye level. And what would be your name? Mine's Mozaroko. My name is Dayton. I'm gonna be village champion one day. Well, once Delius retires. Nuh-uh, Dayton, one of the other children announced, as he was parroted by several others. I'm gonna be village champion. No, I'm gonna be village champion, as they all began to scowl amongst each other. Once again, Mozaroko gave off a gentle laugh. I'm sure that any one of you would make a fine champion, she said, as a young girl approached. Miss Fire Lady? She said, this girl being quite familiar, the one that Delius had saved from an aberrant creature attack. Oh, hello, little one. And aren't you just a precious little thing? Is there something that you want to ask? Mozaroko said with a gentle smile as the girl still looked at her in astonishment, eyes wide, and staring at her hair as it drifted in the breeze. Do you think I could touch your hair? Will it burn? The young girl asked. For a moment, Mozaroko hesitated, looking up to Delius, who smiled and gave her a nod. Yes, I suppose. There wouldn't be anything wrong with it. The girl got a cheerful smile on her face as she slowly approached Mozaroko. Mozaroko kneeling down and grasping a small bundle of her hair and bringing it closer to the girl, who reached out, beginning to touch the hair gently. And as she did, her face lit up with joy and excitement. Wow, it's so warm, she said in amazement as her fingers ran through it. Can I have hair like this? I want warm hair, the girl said as she began to turn around. Mom, how do I get warm hair? I want fire hair like hers. Now, Keela. You should be fine with the hair you have, her mother said, approaching, as she picked the girl up into her arms. Your hair is just fine. Oh, but I want glowy hair, she said, pouting a bit, as Mozarko once again stood to her feet, approaching the woman and the child. Well, young lady, I think your hair is beautiful just the way it is, Mozarko said, extending her hand and giving a gentle pat to the girl's head, stroking her hair gently. I think your hair is quite nice. I'm actually a bit jealous. You're going to grow up to be quite the beautiful young goddess one day. How old are you, little one? Mozarko asked, as the little girl began to try to count on her fingers, eventually getting up to 5 of them, and extending her hand out. No, not yet. You won't be 5 for another 2 months. No, but I want to be 5 now, the girl replied as Mozarko laughed. So, 5 years on planetary time brings you to about 50,000 years. You're just a little sprite, aren't you? Mozarko said, smiling. I'm not that old. Well, in comparison to the rest of the universe, you are. Remember, we gods don't age like those of the rest of the mortal world. And time passes differently here. But I assure you, you're still quite young. Oh, well, how old are you? The little girl said, staring at Mozarko with anticipation. I am not a day over 12 million years old, young lady, and I would thank you to remember that, Mozarko said as she reached out a hand and pinched the girl's cheek just a bit, to which she smiled and giggled somewhat. But in terms of planetary time, I suppose I'm somewhere in my 20s. Oh, I bounce between them so often, it's hard to keep track. We gods have an abundance of time, so I suppose it doesn't really matter. Well, I'm glad to see that you're making fast friends, Mozarko, Delia said, as he approached, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. Try to enjoy yourself while you're here. Talk to the people. I'll see what I can do about setting up some arrangements for a place for you to stay. I believe there are a few single women that would most likely be more than welcome to you bedding with them. And I'll do what I can to keep the men at bay, but do understand that there's only so much I can do. They are men, Delia said, smiling and chuckling just a bit. Oh, do you think me that appealing? Trust me, Mozarko, there's nothing wrong with your appeal, even amongst us. Some of the men here are still unmarried. You're likely to find quarters, beginning to orbit. So, am I to understand that your people would not have a problem with relationships between the godly races? Well, no. Why should we? You are living beings, the same as us. And though your appearance is strange, in many ways in comparison to our own, that does not mean it is without beauty. Why, thank you, Delius, Mozarko said, giving him a smile. I didn't know that your people had such an open perspective of beauty, and it's nice to know your opinion. But for the time being, she said as she turned towards the mother and her child, I was wondering, miss, do you think I could take her off your hands for a short time? I remember when I was a girl your age, and there were lots of games that I used to like to play with my friends. I would be most interested in finding out what kind of games that you play with your friends, Mozarko said, as the girl looked to her mother with a bright smile and an ecstatic expression. Oh, Mom, can I? She began to shout, unable to contain her excitement in the moment. Well, yes, of course, sweetheart. But try not to be bothersome to our guest. I won't, Mom, I swear, the girl said, as her mother put her down and she quickly ran to Mozarko's side, extending her hand up, as Mozarko clenched it with her own gently, and the girl began to lead Mozarko further towards the edge of the village, where there were most likely some children playing, one of the many games that they like to play. Delius felt a sense of calm and accomplishment, that things were beginning to change, and he felt that this change was positive, as this new guest may herald the coming of many others. And there were so many species and races throughout the universe that Delius had heard of, but all of them functioned much like the other races, fading away in but the blink of an eye. The idea of another race to associate with, that did not simply disappear into time, began to give him hope, as he watched Mozarko and the young girl fade towards the exterior of the village.